We have a really special guest today on the Just Baseball show. It's Orioles right-hander Grayson Rodriguez, a guy we've been talking about on the show for a little bit, really excited about on the mound, but now even more excited to have him here talking to us. Grayson, thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank y'all for having me on.
Really simple softball question for you. How's spring training going? I know Orioles fans are obsessed with your development, especially after last year. How's it feeling? How's the arm?
Yeah, doing good. Touched 100 in our first outing in the spring. So Velo's there. Pretty happy about that, where that's at. Right now, it's just all about fine-tuning the off-speed pitches, getting back in the strike zone. That's usually the hardest thing for me to do in spring training is just find the strike zone.
And this is kind of the first spring training for you where you're coming off of, a big league experience here, right? Where it's not necessarily the same trajectory or the same spring that you've been used to in years prior. Is there much difference for you as a pitcher now coming off of a year where, you have a bunch of big league innings under your belt and now it's a big league spring training completely? Or are you kind of used to a similar type of ramp up because you've been, involved with the big league team for several years now?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty similar. I think, realistically, you're still trying to fight to make the team. I think that mindset never changes. I think that helps me go out and compete. Even when spring training games don't mean anything, you still have to find something to work for. So really just kind of coming in, making sure that, we're all healthy and that, we can go out and play in 162 games, which as a starter, you're not going to play in that many, but looking at the 30 starts, 35 starts, whatever it might be, making sure that you're healthy enough to make all of those.
I have, so I've been reading your quotes, because of course the media likes to talk to you after you start because you're awesome and you throw 100 miles an hour and you're 24 years old. And you've harped on the fact that even in the first part of this interview, that being in the zone is really, really important for you. But I saw that you said this multiple times, that you felt that you were wasting bullets when you're not in the zone. I was just curious if you can kind of build on what that means for a pitcher in spring training.
Yeah, so that's kind of been our focus is getting hitters out. 4 pitches or less. We'd like that to be 3 in a perfect world. But really just going out there, attacking the hitters, obviously, you can't go 7-8 innings deep when you're, 100 pitches in the 4th inning. So that's something that, we're really working on. Just trying to attack the hitters with stuff, let them get themselves out and do some early contact. My past couple starts to spring training, been around the zone a lot with fastballs. So we're trying to clean that up right now. That's an important thing for me.
So something that's been, a topic, and I think Greg Maddux has talked about it a lot too, about like kind of the fallacy of the waste pitch. And I feel like that kind of ties into this conversation, right? Because you're a guy that naturally, you're not going to get a lot of one pitch outs because you get so many swings and misses. I mean, I'm looking at your minor league stats. You're a guy that's, striking out 30+% of batters, at every stop pretty much. Of course, you're never going to try to not strike guys out. You're never going to say, here, let me groove one in to get an out earlier. But how do you balance that? Okay, I want to still be who I am, which is a guy who picks up tons of strikeouts, but I also, want to make sure that I keep the pitch count in check and I'm okay with early weak contact.
Yeah. So at the start of the big league season last year, I think I was struggling. I was having a problem with falling behind in the count. Obviously, at the minor league level, the hitters aren't near as good as what they are in the big league. So I was always able to just kind of fight my way back into it, which is tough. But big league hitters, that's just a completely different animal. Falling behind a lot early, 2-0 fastballs, giving up a lot of homers in the second half, starting ahead. But really just kind of back to what you were saying, like getting ahead, inducing early contact. It's okay to not chase a strikeout. Everybody wants strikeouts, love strikeouts, don't get me wrong. But like in the second half, when I was selling better, it was when I was getting that early contact. And the strikeouts were still there, but it helped me pitch longer in the games.
I'm curious kind of when you made that distinction, right? Because you come up and you struggle initially, but then you come back in July and you look like one of the greatest pitchers alive. So I was curious, was it down in the minor leagues when you went back down, or was it in those early months of last year? I'm curious when you made that distinction.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably when I went back down to AAA. I think that's something that, helped me out a lot. Being in the big leagues, like, obviously it's still a 9 inning game, 3 outs, 3 strikes, but at the big league level, obviously the stadiums are a lot different. The hitters that are getting into the box. There's just a lot going on. I think that was, kind of hard for me to focus there at the beginning of last year. And then my stuff really wasn't where I wanted it to be. Change up sometimes my best secondary pitch, which is something I lean on a decent bit. It wasn't where it needed to be. Slider wasn't there. Fastball location wasn't there. It was just like a mixture of a bunch of different things that really wasn't allowing me to pitch like myself. And then when I went down to AAA, I was able to work on that, kind of get back into a rhythm in my windup delivery, then bring that back for the second half in the big leagues, and we were able to take off from there.
So what were like some of the more distinguishing differences for you in terms of course, I mean, these hitters are going to be way better. They're going to be more selective, and they're going to punish you for your mistakes, as you were alluding to with some of the long balls. But, you've been in the minors and stretches where you've had all of those pitches working for you. And you were a rare pitching prospect where it's, plus or plus pitches across the board. Usually a guy has 1 or 2 of those. If you're lucky 3, you could argue that you had 4 and mixed in, cutters and different looks as well. How do you kind of try to lean into your strengths against the best of the best, but also realizing that you have to kind of keep them off balance too, because they're so good? How did you kind of balance your strengths versus trying to adapt to the big leagues?
Yeah. So I think the mindset early on was like pitching to their weaknesses, and not pitching to my strengths, if that makes sense. Kind of being so caught up in what I'm trying to do, even though that's not what I do best. So like attacking guys with the fastball is something that's a key to my success, is just going right after them. Like, 0-0, 1-0, 1, whatever it is early in the count. Like, here's a fastball, hit it. Like, if you're going to, put it in play, hopefully it's an out. But really just getting after guys with the heater. I coming up through the minor leagues, always attacked guys. I think that first part in the big leagues kind of shied away from that. Tried to kind of paint the corners, and that's really not the pitcher that I am. It's all about the heater. So really just getting back, throwing guys the fastball, and letting them hit it if they were going to hit it.
Speaking about heaters, I saw in your last start, normally your fastball is just 100 with crazy amounts of ride, but I saw some zipping horizontally. Are you working on a 2-seamer right now?
Yeah, that's something that is going to be new this year. We're going to start throwing a 2-seam fastball. Last year, when that second half, I did have some 4-seamers that ran a little bit. So it's something we kind of thought about last year. Now, in the middle of the season or in the middle of a good stretch, you really don't want to tinker around with some things. You want to kind of keep doing what you're doing. But going into the off season, I was going to work a little bit with a 2-seam fastball. Brought that into spring training. And we've thrown it a couple times, had some good results with it. Still really working on getting comfortable with it, because, I gave up, I think, can't remember how many hits I gave up my last start. I think I gave up like 3, maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. But I think, it's like for sure two hits were on the 2-seam. So really just kind of feeling comfortable with it, being able to locate it, find a grip that moves pretty consistent is a big thing too.
And is that pitch, kind of ties back to the original point that you were making about, being able to get early contact, or at least, keep the pitch count down. Is that the goal with kind of introducing this 2-seamer? Because you already do have a really diverse arsenal and a lot of different ways that you can attack hitters.
Yeah, really just kind of having a variety of fastballs to throw guys. Still throw a cutter a little bit. That was something that I started doing in Double-A. Just kind of having different forms of a fastball, right? Guys will hunt that 4-seam, which is fine. Then you get late into games, throw them a cutter, a little wrinkle in their approach. That's kind of the same thing. What we're going to do with this 2-seam is really start to show guys, that I can throw something that runs, and then I can also throw something that stays kind of straight with some ride to it. Just kind of different, move patterns, I guess. And still keeping some velo with it, because I did throw a couple 2-seamers where they were just as hard as some 4-seamers. So pretty excited about that and ready to try it out some more.
You could probably dominate if you just go 4-seamer, 2-seamer, and cutter, right? Just be kind of Lance Lynn for a start. Maybe if all of the breaking balls aren't really working, right? Do you think that How well do you think you could do if you just stick with a bunch of different heaters in one start?
I think it all depends on how I locate that day. I think that's a big thing. Like something that I learned, like being in the big leagues, is like, triple digits is cool, but these guys can hit it and turn it around as if it's 90. I mean, it's no different to them, which is pretty crazy to think about. Like coming out to the minor leagues or high school days, like if you throw hard, nobody's going to touch it. But these big league hitters, man, it's impressive to see what they can do with fastballs and how quick they are with the bat. And as long as you can locate that 98, I think you'll be all right. So yeah, I mean, the best start I had last year, I threw a lot of fastballs. So I think that that we're going to try to do that again and stay heater heavy.
Does the fact that they made Camden Yards like the modern day polo grounds in left field, does that give you a little bit more confidence when you're at home to fill up the zone? And I'm sure your position player teammates probably don't love it out there in left, but does that give you a little bit more confidence? Because again, you're a guy that likes to buzz it up at the top and likes to establish that fastball. Do you feel more confident with it at home with that situation?
Yeah, especially if you're facing a lot of lefties in the lineup, that you can pretty much go heater up and not get burnt with it. I mean, if they're going to go opposite field with it, kind of take it where it's pitched. I like my chances with Austin Hayes out there, who's a really good defender, made a lot of spectacular plays last year. So it's a lot of fun to watch him. And, like you said, with that wall, like it's far back and it's tall. It's kind of, it's an odd thing when you first look at it, but being an Oriole pitcher, it's pretty nice because you get away with a lot of things. And then, we sure here are I don't really know what you call it, but like the complaints from the hitters, really get into a ball, hit it to left field, good hit ball. And all it is an F7 and they come back to the dugout, pretty upset. But no, I mean, it's nice for a pitcher for sure.
100%. And, I have tons of questions about, some of your younger teammates like Gunnar Henderson or pitching to Adley or Jackson Holiday. But the newest guy on every Orioles fan's mind is Corbin Burns, right? You get him from the Milwaukee Brewers and the Orioles, right? Your pitching development has been fantastic, but it's been a long time since the Orioles made that enormous move, right, to get the ace from another team. So to see him come into the locker room, what have you been able to pick up from him in the early goings? And just how awesome is it to have Corbin Burns on your team because he's pretty damn good?
Yeah, he's a special talent for sure. There's a very intense personality about him. He's a warrior. He's a gamer. He's a horse. It's going to be a lot of fun to go out and watch him pitch. Obviously I've seen him throw twice in spring training. And man, it's like, there's just a confidence about him that, he's the best on the field, which is, pretty cool to watch, pretty cool to see. Obviously he's been around, been in the postseason a bunch. So I think he brings a lot of experience to this kind of young pitching staff that we have, and it can really help us out in the long run. So it's going to be really fun to see him over the course of the season, pitching in the black and orange, that's for sure.
You mentioned kind of wanting to throw the cutter a little bit more. Is there any chance that Corbin Burns being throwing pens next to you might inspire you to throw it even more? And is there maybe some conversations that you've had about maybe how he throws his? Of course, that's a very individual pitch because the grip kind of takes care of it. But is there anything there that you guys have exchanged yet in terms of talking about the arsenal even beyond the cutter?
Yeah, so that's something we talked about yesterday. Pretty funny that you bring it up. After we were done playing catch, getting to, bounce a few things off of him. And, for him, when he throws a four-seam fastball, it cuts. Like that's just his, his natural wrist position, like everything that moves. Like when he throws that pitch, it's plus for him. That's just how he is. So it's pretty cool to see that, that a lot of guys, whether they generate run naturally or cut naturally, he's just one of those guys that can just throw a heck of a cutter, and obviously has some success with it. So it's a lot of fun to watch.
It's got to be fun to watch just Corbin Burns dicing up those cutters. Who else kind of in the rotation so far have you been able to pick their brain this season? Maybe some changes that they made over the offseason that they've, handed over to you and said, I was working on this. I think it might work well for you. Or is there anything that you've been able to maybe talk to guys like Kyle Bradish or John Means or any of these guys and say, hey, I've been working on this. You should try it as well.
Yeah. So obviously, like you said, Means and Bradish, two phenomenal pitchers. Yeah, I mean, I think we bounce a lot of stuff off each other, like in the bullpens and stuff, how we're throwing changeups or sliders. Bradish has a really, really good slider. So that's something that I'm always trying to, kind of learn some tips from him on how to throw that. Which, of course, like different pitchers throw from different arm angles and arm slots. So, it's not always just translates perfectly, like how he holds his slider. I still have to hold mine a little bit different, but the intent that he uses, I can really take that from him, what he's feeling at release and stuff like that. I think that's something that we have conversations, a lot about with each other. We got a good atmosphere in the clubhouse, so that helps a lot too.
Well, in the clubhouse, it's also getting younger, which in a really good way too, because it's a lot of really good young talent, as Peter alluded to earlier. And it's funny because you look at the farm system, it's the best in baseball, obviously. And then even guys that have recently graduated, it's the best under 25 talent in baseball as well. But you've been a prospect for a while and a top prospect for a while. And it feels like almost you walked so that the rest of the farm system could run with the way that they've loaded it up after. But what's it been like now? You get there. Obviously, you graduate from prospect status, but almost either alongside you, like Adley was, or guys just right behind you, like Gunnar. And now we're going to see Jackson Holliday and so many others. Jordan Westberg was fantastic as well. I mean, what is that like? Did you ever imagine when you were 18, 19, even 21 years old coming through the minor leagues that you would have this much young talent right behind you?
Yeah. So me and Adley and GL Hall and the kind of the core group that started it, like the 2018, 2019 draft class era. Obviously I've been pitching to Adley since I was 19 years old in low A. So, kind of being able to come up with him, that's something we always talked about, was like being in the big leagues. 2020 when COVID hit and everybody had like spring training 2.0, like the whole alt site ordeal. The minor league season was shut down. Me, Gunnar, Adley, and which DL, who's now with the Brewers, we were all together and we always talked about that, like being in the big leagues together. We thought about it a lot, and now like to kind of see all that come true has been really fun. To go out there and compete. Like I said, it's been a dream come true, but obviously, now that we're in the big leagues, we're trying to win a World Series. That's the goal now. We made it, now we move on to more bigger and better goals. That's something that we're trying to work on every day. In the process of trying to get that World Series ring.
I've seen on your Twitter, and by the way, go follow Grayson Rodriguez on Twitter, that you have been interacting with DL Hall, or at least recently, and then kind of, over the past couple of years. I saw that he said, I'm trying to get some food in the Baltimore area. Maybe I won't go to Jimmy's Seafood. And then you quote tweeted and said, maybe you should go to a salad bar. You guys are definitely good friends. I'm curious, and I'm sure Brewers fans are too. What are they getting in a guy like DL Hall?
Yeah, they're getting an athlete. He's really impressive. What he can do off the baseball field. Obviously being a pitcher, that can be an unathletic position. I think, some people can see that. But no, I mean, he's just a very competitive nature person. Somebody I like to be around, somebody that makes me a lot better person and a pitcher. But yeah, he's definitely got a fire inside of him. He's going to go out, he's going to compete, and he's going to work, that's for sure. So, Brewers fans are going to get to watch him and Joey Ortiz. Those are two special talents for sure that they're going to get to watch for a long time.
Last year was obviously a huge success in so many ways, being one of the best teams in baseball for so much of the season. I know you're talking about the goal being the World Series, and understandably so when you're pacing the American League and wins. What did you guys learn from last year, given the massive success you have over 162 and then getting to the playoffs? I mean, again, this is a young team. What do you feel like a lot of the younger players learned to be able to apply and take it to the next level this year? Of course, adding Corbin Burns helps, and guys just naturally getting better on the field because they gain experience always helps. But what did you feel like you and the young guys on this team came away with from that experience last year that you can apply to 24 and make that next step?
Yeah, I'd say the big thing is like what it feels like to play in a playoff game. It's a lot different than a regular season game. There's a lot of guys on our team that had never been in the playoffs. We really didn't know what to expect. We've never seen Camden Yards like that. It was electric, and the game kind of speeds up on you in big moments like that. It did for me in my start. I didn't throw near how I wanted to. Really just tried to go out there and do too much. Really just kind of having that experience of playoff baseball, what it's like. There's a lot of energy in the ballpark. And looking back on it now this year, we're going to be right back there, and, we're going to have done it again. And, we're going to be a lot better. For the most part, I think everybody's going to be able to perform much better after having that experience last year.
And someone that I always think it's hard to correctly quantify his impact on winning, but ever since Adley Rutman was called up to the Orioles, they really haven't stopped winning. And that includes last year, that includes the year before. They've just been an incredible team since Adley Rutman stepped onto the field. And we can look at WAR totals, we can look at all these different stats, but the fact of the matter is that when Adley Rutman is an Oriole, the Orioles are winning more often than not. You've been throwing to him for a while. Can you speak to just his winning attitude and what he brings to the field that maybe isn't quantifiable in the numbers?
Yeah. I think he's a great clubhouse guy. Adley Rutman's phenomenal off the field. He's a leader, really likes to win, really good at what he does. I don't think he really gets caught up in that. I think he's very humble. Just a really good guy to be around. Obviously, that's important characteristics for a catcher. He gets along with everybody on the pitching staff. Very smart behind the plate, and I think that makes every starter, every reliever. I think it makes everybody better. Having him back there, and obviously going out and being able to put up the offensive numbers that he does for a catcher is very impressive. And I think guys feed off his energy. I think, he brings a good energy to the ballpark every night, loves to have fun, always joking around in the clubhouse and stuff. So, we like to keep it pretty loose in Baltimore. We like to have fun. And I think he fits that mold perfectly. And, everybody likes watching him behind the dish too.
I just have a quick follow-up, Arm. How do you guys have fun in the locker rooms? Are you guys playing pool? Are you playing ping pong? We've talked to a lot of different players and they all have their own different games. Who's winning the games and what games are you playing in the locker room?
Yeah. So pool and ping pong, those are two big ones. Darts, that's another big one. I'd say I think Monopoly Deal was really popular last year. Not just regular cards, but Monopoly Deal. So a lot of guys are pretty loose in the clubhouse. It makes a pretty stress-free environment. Guys are able to go out and perform every night. Showing up to the ballpark's pretty fun. So we like to keep it that way. And, I think a lot of wins come from that. Just having a good, atmosphere in the clubhouse. I think it's really important. I think a lot of people overlook that. That helps us out a lot.
Who's the clubhouse leader? Who's winning all these games?
I think it depends on the category. Anthony Santander is really good at pool. CNL Perez, really good at pool. Dean Kramer, very good on the ping pong table. There's a good mix. That's for sure. The darts is kind of up in the air. Whoever's got the hot hand. But there's some guys that are really good at ping pong. The hand-eye coordination is pretty incredible. Watching a lot of people play, I'd say I'm kind of in the middle of the pack, both categories, more kind of balanced. That's kind of what I like to look at.
You guys need to have a triathlon or something one of these days where you can you just go through the ringer, points across the board, whoever wins at all of those games across the board. If you had to pick one guy that could win, in all different games, right? You're scoring it across the board. Who do you think is the triathlete? Yeah,
it's probably Dean. Watched him play pool. Today. He was playing Kyle Bradish in the clubhouse. Dean had some pretty good shots. He could put the spin on the ball and everything. Pretty impressive. Yeah. I kind of get on the pool table and just kind of hit it as hard as I can and hope that the ball goes in the pocket. But watching Kramer play is pretty cool. So I think he might take that trophy home.
So we have more questions probably about your goals for this year and more stuff about the Orioles, but I want to take you back to the beginning of your career, and I want to do a player A and player B comparison with you. So I'm going to take you back to 2018, high school baseball. Player A has an 11-0 record, a 0.09 ERA, 148 strikeouts in 76 innings, and he hit .434 at the plate. Player B went 12-0, 0.19 ERA, 156 strikeouts in 75 innings, and player B hit .479 with 9 home runs. Player A, can you guess who that is?
I don't know. Was it me? I'm not sure.
It was Ryan Weathers. Player B was you, and Ryan Weathers won Gatorade Player of the Year. I think he got robbed.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. The Gatorade Player of the Year. I don't know. I think what hurt me was going to a smaller school. I think in Texas you have 1A that's very bottom, very smallest. Then you have 6A, which is the biggest. My high school was 3A, kind of in the middle. So I remember when the draft talk was, all kind of buzzing around that spring. That was one thing that I guess was concerning some scouts was like that. He doesn't go to a huge school, which I'm from a smaller town in Texas, so the huge school is really not close to me. But yeah, that was something that was kind of brought up, which I always thought was funny. I feel like if you're throwing 98 as a high school kid, you're throwing 98, whether that's at a smaller school or a bigger school. So yeah, I'm not sure if that had something to do with it or not, but I definitely love to swing the bat. My dad played outfield in college, so hitting always came first. My brother's a sophomore right now in high school, pitching and hitting and everything. So we always did both. And hitting, we always took more reps in the cage than we did on the mound. That was for sure.
You mentioned your father, Gilbert. I know you've talked about this a little bit plenty after your debut, but I'd be remiss not to bring it up. I mean, it's one of my favorite things we saw last year. I think one of the more heartwarming just clips that went viral, last year during the baseball season, but during your debut, just how emotional your father was. And clearly that's, built on a really strong relationship and a strong bond. And I think that's what hit home for so many people. Can you just talk about what that was like? Did you have any idea that your dad was going to be that emotional, or did you kind of know that was going to come? And just, can you speak a little bit to the bond that you have with your father?
Yeah. So, my family's a baseball family. My mom was a softball coach. Dad obviously played in college. Growing up, we ate, slept, breathed baseball, whatever you want to call it. It was a big part of our, my childhood, I guess. My brothers too. All the swings, all the, the ground balls, everything. My dad was always there. He was always helping us, making me better. Definitely wouldn't be where I'm at today without him. We're a very superstitious family too. So I don't know, jumping the line, certain numbers, everything. That's how my dad and my mom were. So that's how me and my brother are now. And I think, he was a nervous wreck for sure in my debut, which when I pitch, I can't ever find him in the stands because he walks around, he paces around the ballpark and stuff. He's never in the same spot. I think that's from when I was little, when kids mess up in Little League or something, the first thing they do is look to the stands or in the dugout and see what their dad's reaction is. My dad didn't want it to be that way. He wanted us to focus on the game. So he always kind of did a Where's Waldo type deal, while I was pitching. So I would never be able to find him. And therefore, I never looked for him. And at the debut, they try to get the parents and the family on the broadcast on the camera. So they were like, can you please just sit in the same spot? And that was just absolutely killing him, that he had to stay in the same place, kind of throwing him off his rhythm when I was out there pitching. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Just kind of, I guess, how emotionally draining it was for them that day. And getting to see him after the game was pretty special.
I have 2 questions based off that answer. First one, you're throwing 98 in high school. How old were you when your dad couldn't catch your bullpens anymore?
I think it would have probably been 8th grade. Yeah, it would probably been about 8th grade. I think probably when I was 13, 14. you start throwing upper 80s. He doesn't, most dads catch a bullpen on the bucket, and you can't really move as well from a bucket. So I think after he took one off the shin one day, when I really started starting to throw hard, let it loose, that was kind of the last time where he was like, you know what, you're going to have one of your friends in gear or something come catch you. I'd say it was probably in the 8th grade for sure.
Your dad's probably been on an emotional high since you were 12 or 13. He's like, my 13-year-old is throwing 83-mile-an-hour sliders right now. I mean, what the hell is going on? That's probably what he's thinking. But I also have another question based off your other answer about superstitions, right? We just had Tanner Bybee and Stephen Kwan on, and they talked about how a couple of their Guardians teammates have some superstitions, but they have kind of moved off that. Do you have any superstitions before you pitch, or did you maybe have one when you were in high school and then have moved off it? What's your view on superstitions?
Yeah, got a lot of them. I think I could sit here all day and talk about them. But wearing the same tank top every time I pitch, that's something that I've been doing. Never stepping on the line on the way out to the pitcher's mound. At one point, I was counting the exact number of steps it took from the dugout to the mound, but then that gets all thrown off in the big leagues because the dugouts are all in different positions, based off the stadium you're playing at, how far they are from the mound and stuff. And then when I go get the ball from the umpire, I never walk up the front of the mound. I always have to enter the mound from the back. I don't know why that is. It's just something that I always do. So sometimes if the umpire rolls the ball perfectly up the mound in between innings, you don't ever see it because there's a commercial break. But when I go pick up the ball, if it's on the front part of the dirt, I will not step on the dirt. I have to try to long arm and reach it and pick it up and then walk back to the back of the mound to get on the mound to start throwing my warm-up pitches.
Where did all these come from?
I don't know. I think it just kind of happens, when you're trying different things, or, if you feel like, man, I've been giving up a lot of hits, last inning, I'm going to try to do something different. And then, striking out the side or doing something, that stems from what you just did. I think that kind of spurs it. So they can change. They can change for sure. But yeah, right now that's something that I've been doing.
Does anyone else on the team have any unique superstitions that would be funny to share? I'm also now going to be looking between innings when you're running out to the mound. If I'm at a ball game, I'm going to look for you to try to reach over the mound and try to not touch. What happens if you fall over and you fall on the mound? Do you have to go back to the dugout, start it over and come back out? What do you do at that point?
No, I'm really not sure because it hasn't happened. So hopefully it won't happen. But yeah, I mean, if it's too far for me to get, then I'll just go ahead and walk up the back of the mound.
Hey Gunner, come over here. Come get this ball for me real quick.
Yeah, no, that could be something that happens too. I call him over there, or Urias or Mountcastle or somebody. In terms of superstitions, man, I don't know. Mountcastle comes in the dugout and pours water on his face every time before he goes up to bat. And I mean, if you're not expecting it, you'll get a lot of water on you because he just pours it out in his face. And it kind of hits you or whatever. That one's kind of funny. Not sure why he does it, but that's what he always does. Pours a full Gatorade cup, in the dugout of water on his face. So it definitely got my socks wet a few times with him doing that. It's pretty funny.
And you spoke about the tank top, how you don't want to remove it. You had a prolonged stretch there from July, August to September where you're putting up 2 ERA type months. That tank top has to smell awful. I mean, there's no way you changed it for 3 straight months.
Well, no. I washed it. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, he's washed.
He's got 40 days.
It's washed, but that's what I'm wearing. That's what I'm wearing under my jersey every start. Unless Chicago early in the season, it was freezing outside. It's in the 30s, I think. The heaters were on in the dugout. It was pretty miserable. Had to wear a turtleneck that day. And did all right. I'm not going to say I did pretty good. Gave up, I think, 2 homers in the first, and then got the changeup going. But that was pretty miserable. I didn't have my tank top on that day. Definitely needed it.
Because I was thinking, right, when you're on a stretch like you were last year, if you just never wash that tank top, and let's say you're 3 months in and you smell, maybe it starts trickling into the batter, throws him off his game a little bit, then you're going multiple fastballs. It could be it's kind of like another pitch that you're adding. just stench
Yeah,
piss.
no.
He doesn't charge for this advice, by the way.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is all free for you.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something.
You're not going to hear this in Trent. You're not going to hear this in athletics.
Maybe water their eyes a little bit. That way they can't really see it coming. I think I'm going to keep washing it.
It's probably going to.
I think it's like Mahomes or somebody wear the same pair of sliders or something. I think it was Mahomes.
They were saying Rosario does the same thing. Ahmed Rosario. That's what Quan and Bobby were saying. Where I assume he washes them, but apparently his sliders are all ripped up, and he will not get new ones. He refuses. He won't even, if you suggest it, he gets pissed. So like, it's just no one bothers anymore. But one of the last questions I wanted to ask you was just kind of about facing some of these really loaded lineups in the American League. Yeah. And I think that was a really fun wrinkle in it too. I was so excited to see you back after what you did in your AAA stint. When you went back down to work on things, I mean, you had 3 outings where you're striking out 10, 11, and 12 batters. And then you get right back into it. Your first start back. Okay, we'll ease you back into the big leagues. No, we won't. You got the Dodgers. You turn in a good start there, and then you get the Rays, and then you get the Yankees, and then you get the Blue Jays, and then you get the Astros, and then you get the Padres, and then you get the Blue Jays. Like, it was an absolute ringer of starts to come straight back from the minor leagues for. Did you feel like that gave you even more confidence? And how did you feel going into that? Did you know like the kind of stretch that you had when you came back up?
Yeah. So facing the Dodgers, the first start back, I think that's where it started. Obviously, that's a pretty loaded lineup right there. And if you kind of start looking at the card before the game, you're going, okay, 1, 2, 3. You're getting out of like the 7th hole hitter, and you're like, geez, like it's deep. I think if you get too caught up in that, it can kind of make you less aggressive. Cool thing about playing for an AL East team is like, you're going up against some big dogs every night. There's a lot of divisional matchups. They're very important. A lot of loaded lineups, but the most important thing is like, just to remember, like, hey, like, look at your own team's lineup. Like,
yeah,
where that they're going to give you runs, like they're going to score 2. And so the other pitchers having to see that lineup, it all kind of evens itself out. In the AL East, you're going to give up runs. Like those lineups are, like I said, they're nasty. So there's going to be times where you give up runs. And you just got to remind yourself, all I have to do is give up, less runs than the other team. Because your guys are going to score 2, so that'll ease your mind pretty well. If you can go out there and put up some zeros, even if you give up 1 or 2 runs, you're still putting your team in a pretty good spot to win.
Who was your toughest AB through this gauntlet?
Toughest at bat?
Yeah, like who maybe gave you the most trouble, or just a guy came up and you're thinking to yourself, well, I saw the zones before the game and it's all red. What do I do now?
Yeah, I think that would be, probably Yordan Alvarez, like facing him. There's really not a lot of blue on that chart. Ohtani's the same way. It's kind of something that where you're like, well, do I throw this? Do I not throw that? And that's kind of where you just kind of have to put that aside and go to your strengths, because but as a pitcher, you have to pitch with intent. If you don't trust what you're throwing, you're probably not going to have success with it. So really just go back to trusting your stuff against guys like that. But I think those are 2 that stood out when you look at the heat maps. It's pretty funny to see because those guys can do some damage.
Last one for me is just more on the individual side for you. What aside from being available every 5th day and just continuing to turn out some good results, what are some things that you're focused on in terms of like what would be a successful 2024 for you, and specific goals that you might have for yourself, or things that you just like to see? I wouldn't say change, but just maybe get better or continue to improve.
Yeah, being pretty consistent. I think taking the second half of last year, being able to do that the first half and the second half this year, I think that's my big goal. Being more of a consistent type pitcher, obviously making every start, being healthy. I think that's at the top of everybody's list, especially starters. Going out and throwing a lot of innings. I think that's big. Helps save your bullpen, short term and long term. The less your bullpen guys are in there, the better they're feeling and the more effective they're going to be. So as a starter, just pitching deep into games, It's all about the quality starts. I think that really helps your bullpen a lot, going 6-7 innings, every time you can.
Grayson, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. My last question for you is a favor. So it was back in, I think it was July. You pitched against my New York Yankees and you threw 6 1/3 and shut us down. My favor to ask is, can you take it easy on us this year? Because it wasn't fun as a Yankee fan watching you. As a fan of you, it was great. As a fan of my team, it was terrible. So can you take it easy on the Yankees this year?
I don't know. No, it's only because it's the Yankees. That's a divisional opponent. So, we got to be tough on them. But I remember that game pretty vividly. I think we started really late. It was a rain delay. Went up against Garrett Cole that night. The conditions were kind of gross. I think we started the game at 8:30. I don't know. It was 8:15. I don't know. It was late. Got out of there after midnight. The game was still rolling on. But yeah, the Yankees, I don't know if I can take it easy on them. That's a big lineup, one that I was just talking about. So I don't know if they need any help.
It's fair. I just had to ask. And again, sorry, just one more question because, I watched basically every start that you had in the second half. And there was a start against the Rays later on in the year. And the Rays had already taken the first 2 of the series. And you needed a great start because at the time, Orioles and the Rays were virtually tied atop the division. And you came out and you threw 8 shutty, 7 Ks against that Rays lineup that was raking at the time. Was that when you kind of felt like you were at the peak of your powers? Because I watched that start and what I saw was potentially the best pitcher in baseball in a few years.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, a big thing to look back on for me this year. Kind of seeing what I'm capable to do with the fastball. Leaned pretty heavy on it that game. Was able to locate the ball well. A lot of early contact, being able to pitch late into that game. So really, that kind of set the tone for me. Showed me that I can have success like that at the big league level, and that was big for my confidence.
Awesome. I'm excited to see you build on that, dude. It's going to be really fun to see that second half extrapolated over the entire 2024 season. And we're excited to see what the Orioles are going to do this year too. Well, I am more than Peter, but I know Peter enjoys the Orioles as much as a Yankee fan possibly can. But thank you so much for the time, man. It was so great talking to you and best of luck the rest of the year.
Yeah, thank y'all very much.